The water behind me inspired one of England's greatest 20th century authors to change his name. Find out who he was and where I am in just a moment. Today's property shopping pair has decided to swap the big smoke for pastures new.
I think it's very quaint. It's a proper sort of Suffolk-looking building.
And they're hoping the right property will provoke some heartfelt reactions.
It just doesn't give me that sort of, oh...
warm, use me type of feeling.
Yeah.
Today I'm in Suffolk, and this is the River Orwell, which gave the young writer Eric Blair the idea for his pen name, under which he became a much more famous George. Of course, it was Orwell's book 1984, published after the Second World War, that gave us the ideas of doublespeak, Big Brother and Room 101. And it's hard to connect those dystopian concepts with this very bucolic and pastoral bit of England. But the young writer Orwell did live here when he was staying with his parents down the road in Southwold, and he would come on walks along the riverside to get inspiration from the brooding skies and solitude of this bit of Suffolk. Suffolk has strong and distinctive countryside, and at the last count, 12,500 historic listed buildings. So you'd be surprised to know that it's still quite reasonable to buy property here. The average cost of a detached house in the county is £270,000, which is £13,000 less than the national figure. So not massively cheaper, but still not too expensive. That is, unless you go across to the coast, where in places like Aldborough or Southwold, houses can cost double the national figure. So what is it that's exciting our buyers today about moving to this lovely county? Let's meet them and find out. HR Director Sheila and husband Gary, who owns his own design construction business, met over 2 decades ago.
We've just recently had our 20th wedding anniversary. We were both working at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, working on their new redevelopment project. And I was employed by the hospital and he was on the building site.
The contractor said to me, we have one of the hospital managers who's not particularly easy to get on with, Gary. We might need you to meet her to try and smooth her over a bit. And I did, and thus we're here.
Sheila and Gary live in Wandsworth, southwest London, and after a lifetime of work, they've decided they want to slow things down.
Maybe it's time to use the, if you like, the autumn of our lives while we've still got good health and have a change.
It's the right time. I don't want to wait until I'm 65 and then be too old to do the exploring.
Although they've loved city life, it's no longer the place they want to call home.
We want to be a little bit more isolated, a little bit more rural, and enjoy that outside life rather than the cosmopolitan life in London. We would like to own a dog as well. Those people who own dogs tend to statistically live longer, and I'm up for that.
The two of them are free to make their rural move, as Gary's daughter is now grown up. And Suffolk has many selling points that appeal to them.
It's got a mix of the things that we like. We like being near or easy access to the sea, but also easy access to lots of countryside and areas to walk.
Since giving up work, they're already investing quality time in doing the things they love.
We've enjoyed the sort of retirement for the last 2 or 3 months, and it's spending time together and getting our routine out of a routine. I do quite a bit of reading. Cooking we do quite a lot of. Gary's taking that up. We do that together.
And I find it quite relaxing, to be honest. I'm looking forward to the better weather coming so I can get out on the roads on my motorbikes. I'm very interested in those.
Sheila's also working on a new venture for when they move.
I'm using the opportunity to do some retraining, so I've chosen to do more Pilates. To me, it's totally different to anything I've ever done before, from being a director to then doing an exercise and being a teacher. So it's a huge learning opportunity, and then be able to use that when I move to the country, to be able to teach some ladies who live in the local community, in the church hall, or to people in their houses on a one-to-one basis.
With their house under offer, their Suffolk dream is an exciting step closer to becoming reality.
We both have the ability to be able to entertain ourselves but be harmonious. That will be amplified when we're away from London. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I haven't got any issues with London. I've had a great time here. We just know it's time for a change.
Sheila and Gary have decided that they'd like to live towards the west of the county, which is where we're concentrating our Suffolk search. And before we start, I'm meeting them in the county, in the village of Thorpe Maru, by the Church of St Mary, to get to grips with exactly what it is they're looking for. Welcome to Suffolk. You know the area quite well.
We were looking more east towards the coast originally, but as we've expanded our search, we've come more into central Suffolk, and we really like the countryside.
And have you thought about the pros and cons of actually moving out of London and the actual reality of being like away from your friends, out in the sticks?
Yes, and part of that is some of them will come and visit, and that will be a bit of interest for a short while, and then we'll make new friends. I've retrained to do a completely different career into Pilates, so I want to meet the people in the local community and work with them.
So are you looking to be in a village or out in the sticks?
It would be nice to be in or near a village, so that, yes, there'll be a village hall.
You'd be a hit here, Pilates teacher.
That would be good, yes.
Yeah. So tell me about the house.
So really want something that has got a lot of character, with some features and nice fireplace, but a large kitchen.
I'd like to keep more motorcycles, so I need a decent double garage at least. And I like to lend my hand to a bit of DIY, so a bit of workshop space would be appreciated, without doubt.
So outbuildings of some kind?
Yeah.
We're trying to stay away from a listed property, only that it's difficult to heat, and some of them have very few bathrooms, and having enough bathrooms when people come to visit is quite important.
So that's interesting, because obviously if you want an older property, sort of pre-Victorian, they often don't come with all those mod cons.
And it's those sort of compromises. It's seeing what's there and then trying to work what's really important.
Gary, you've been in the property trade. Are you willing to do some work on a property?
Oh, without doubt, yes. I'm happy to put some effort in. I don't want to sort of have to start knocking things down and completely reconstructing them.
Remind me of your budget.
Well, ideally, we'd like to be in the £450,000 to £500,000 marker.
Well, we've got 3 lovely properties lined up, and they all sort of offer different things.
We're looking forward to it.
Come on then, let's go and get in the car. Sheila and Gary's top budget is pretty generous for the area, as they don't want to be on the coast. They're looking for a house with lots of character that provides them with a large kitchen diner for them to embrace their love of cooking and entertaining. Gary would like a garage and workshop space where he can get his hands dirty and store his motorbikes. And also on the list is 3 to 4 bedrooms, an office, a manageable garden, and they'd like to be near a village. And best of all, they're open to compromise. Taking their requirements on board, we've selected some fantastic and varied properties, but the crucial price will only be disclosed after they've toured the house. The final stop will be at the mystery property, which may at first glance be missing a vital ingredient, but in fact could offer them even more than they could imagine. We're kick-starting our property search in the rural village of Thorpe Maru, which is 10 miles southeast of the market town of Bury St Edmunds. Thorpe Maru sits in a conservation area, and the countryside provides plenty of potential dog-walking opportunities. From every vantage point in the village, the tower of the Church of St Mary's stands tall, overlooking the surrounding fields and grazing livestock. The nearest shops are around 2 miles away, but there is a village hall which could provide the perfect setting for Sheila to hold her Pilates lessons. Close to the hall is this immaculate thatched cottage, dating back, in part, to the late 17th century. Here we have it, offering number 1.
Beautiful. Chocolate box.
Well, it's a proper Suffolk longhouse.
Right.
With quite a bit of history, actually. It was the village shop for many years. It goes back about 350 years. And it was originally just a 2-bedroom cottage, and it's been extended over the centuries as a Victorian extension, and then this bit at the back is a very modern extension.
Looks onto countryside all around.
I think it's very quaint. It's a proper sort of Suffolk-looking building. It's lovely.
And we do have a nice, good-sized garage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is not always a given on these properties. So, should we look inside?
Yes, it'd be nice to see.
This whitewashed cottage is Grade 2 listed, which Sheila and Gary weren't too keen on, but they did say they'd be open-minded. It's been extensively updated by the current owners and successfully blends country cottage charm with comfortable contemporary living. Now, mind your heads. So, a few beams in here. So this is the dining room hall, but I want to take you through to the sitting room. This is the oldest part of the house.
Very cosy.
A nice wood-burning stove.
It's cosy, kind of low ceilings, but this is the older part. The ceilings get a bit higher at the more modern end.
No, it looks in beautiful condition. It's really nicely done. I mean, it's a proper cottage. And it's nice to have that sunlight flooding in through that window.
This is a nice sized living room.
This side you've got the boot room, but the kitchen and everything goes on through this way. So there's rooms off there. There's a utility room and a toilet. And then you come into the kitchen, which is in the centre of the house.
Oh, okay, nice size.
Yeah, very good, very welcoming.
It's got a nice range. The work surfaces are quite narrow.
Yeah.
We were hoping to be able to have a table in the kitchen, and this would be a little bit smaller to achieve that. But of course, with that right next door, then that kind of works.
But it's interesting what they've done in the Victorian end and the extension. So you come through here. Mind your head. Look, you've got a second sitting room at this end, because you've got this Victorian extension, and through here, this is the extension they put on for their teenage son.
Oh, right.
Ah, more space than you'd think from the front.
Exactly, yeah. It's a bit of a TARDIS, this property.
Yeah.
There's lots of light, isn't there? That's very nice. Need to see the rest.
This downstairs bedroom with its ensuite shower room could easily become an office for Sheila and Gary. Upstairs there are a further 3 bedrooms accessed by 2 stairways, one which leads straight up into the master in the eaves. The room is dual aspect with a Victorian-style fireplace and a bright ensuite bathroom. A second double with feature beams also has 2 windows allowing light to flood in, and it also has its own ensuite. Finally, there's a slightly smaller room with views across the garden to the neighbouring church. Back downstairs we're heading outside, into the garden, which has been home to a wheelwright, a cart maker and a forge. Along with established flower beds and a greenhouse, there's even a well.
The garden runs along the side of the road, and it's quite long and thin, but is it about the right size for you guys?
It's a lot bigger than what we've got at the moment, but it's something to move to the country to get used to and learn to look after lots of different plants.
I'd say it's manageable for us, a pair of townies. It's a good place to start.
How much do you think it's on the market for, this property?
Difficult to gauge because I haven't looked at listed properties, so 465.
I'm going to go a little bit higher than that, I think 470.
Ah, well, it's actually on a bit more. It's on at £485,000.
But if you think there's absolutely nothing that you need to do, I mean, you could move in and everything would be perfect. Why don't you go and look inside?
OK.
£15,000 under the top end of their budget, this delightful extended cottage started life 500 years ago and gives Sheila and Gary the character thereafter. It has just the number of bedrooms they need, and with a dining room adjoining the kitchen, they get the large entertaining space they want. The garden gives them a manageable project, and the garage would provide a home for Gary's precious motorbikes.
Lots of rafters.
Very different to the other side of the house.
It's a twin room.
Very cottagey. I had to duck when we came in, which was a bit of an issue, but I was pleasantly surprised to find we went upstairs, there were none of those problems at all. I guess I'd just have to get used to a little duck to go from room to room.
It's surprising how many big, large double bedrooms there were, most of which had en suite. From the outside, you thought it was much smaller. Quite interesting layout, and quite nice because you could split one end to the house for us, and then when people come to visit the other end because of the 2 separate staircases.
Interesting for me because it is listed property, which we had kind of thought, well, maybe that's a bit of a risky area. But being as it's in such lovely condition and been cared for so well, I'm not too daunted by that.
It is on the road, but it's super quiet. I don't think it's going to be a problem. You ready, guys?
Yeah, that's great.
Come out. So that's all done with this one. We're going to go and see another house.
OK, great.
Lovely.
You can hold your thoughts.
Timber-framed architecture is one of the great hallmarks of Suffolk's heritage buildings. Preserving them so they look just as striking as they did centuries ago is a skilled and lengthy process. Sarah Partridge runs a restoration project which offers courses in traditional timber framing and restoration skills. Sheila and Gary have come to meet her in the shade of St John's Grove woodland in the village of Battersford, right in the heart of Suffolk. With his background in construction, Gary's looking forward to learning all about this centuries-old technique.
Sarah, how old are these trees?
The younger ones are about 50 years old. They're seedlings from some older oaks. There's been a wood here for 500 years.
Towards the end of the 16th century, Sir Thomas Gresham, the wealthy merchant who owned these woods, used the trees to create the timber framing for London's first Royal Exchange.
Are most of these trees oak?
There's a lot of oak in this wood, but we've also got some hornbeam coppice, and we've got an understory of thorn.
The oak used for the distinctive beams in Suffolk's traditional buildings is called green oak. It's usually sawn from newly felled trees and hasn't had time to dry, so it's easier to cut with traditional hand tools. This is what Sarah and her team of volunteers are using to restore a barn dating back to the 1600s in a neighbouring village.
We have been able to source timber for our roof rafters from these woods.
Right.
So I like that there's a direct link throughout history that we are continuing.
What would make a good tree for the purposes of construction?
If you'd like to follow me, I'll show you.
Perfect.
So let's have a look at this tree. It's nice size, nice big trunk.
So out of this tree, usefully, probably what, there's 3 decent length beams, is there?
I would hope so. It depends on the amount of sapwood.
The sapwood is the wood sandwiched between the bark and the heartwood. It's soft and full of juicy sap, which insects love to eat, so it has to be discarded, leaving less wood to build with. New trees are planted to replace the ones chopped down, and Sarah's used around 20 trees from here to restore Orchard Barn.
We have done some repairs. We've done them as a series of training courses.
What techniques do you use for the construction?
We're using a range of traditional building methods here, and we make our own shingles, and we have reclad our roof here.
It looks like there's an awful lot of them on there.
There's 20,000 shingles up there. They've all been hand cleft. That roof is the work of over 70 people.
It took those 70 people a long 9 months to get the job done, and now it's Sheila and Gary's turn to leave their mark on this historic barn and see how a log is transformed into a shingle or tile.
Shingles are very durable. What we've got on the roof here is 3 deep.
The tiles can last around 60 years without rotting, and Sarah's using different trees from the Suffolk woodlands to make one.
Here we have a sweet chestnut log and a froe, and I'm going to use the froe. I'm going to hit it quite hard with this maul.
It went very quickly, didn't it, at the end?
And I'm going to start cleaving the shingles. We're aiming to cut thin slices of pie. Start it off. Nope, and it's gone. There we go. Nice and simple.
Okay.
If
Yep.
you'd like to come round here.
Yep.
You're looking for a slice of pie.
Yes.
Hooray! Your first
Pie.
shingle.
Yep. Just about usable, I think, that one.
That's a lovely looking shingle.
Next, the sapwood is removed.
Like so. Okay, so here we have the shingle minus sap.
Very clean.
You can still smell, and it feels damp. I suppose it's fresh, green,
Yeah.
sweet chestnut.
Lastly, the sides of the shingle are flattened so they can butt up against each other.
Here we go.
That looks like the right shape to me, Sarah.
It is the perfect shingle. This one is ready to go.
For our second house, we're journeying just over 18 miles northeast to the pretty village of Wattersfield, which is just under 13 miles northeast of Bury St Edmunds. The land here is rich in mica clay, giving the village a history of pottery making, with a long-established family-run pottery still open for business. Under a 10-minute drive away is the attractive village of Bottersdale, which provides the nearest amenities. Back on the edge of Wattersfield, our second property is a neat and much newer proposition.
Very different from the first one.
Yes.
Yes.
We've got a modern property here. So this was built in 1999. Actually just had one owner.
Very different, as you say, to the other one. But again, quite a nice view and only a couple of properties nearby.
First thoughts, not the sort of place that we would ordinarily look at, but I'm sure it fits the brief in all sorts of other ways.
One of the things we struggled with is getting you your double garage.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a lot of these sort of the more charming properties just don't have double garages. You have a shared access with your neighbour, but you do have a whopping great double garage. So that was one of the kind of factors that brought us here. But it also gives you lots of space.
Okay.
Should we look inside?
Love to.
This extensive home may be more youthful than Sheila and Gary were hoping for, but what it lacks in years, it makes up for in plenty of other aspects. We're entering through the side door.
In through the utility.
In through utility into a very big kitchen diner.
Good layout.
It is.
Lots of work surfaces.
While this doesn't have the cosy period charm of the first one, if you think about the bones of it, you can always add the kind of coziness with furniture.
And you have got the head height here.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very functional. The layout is what you're really looking for, the kitchen onto the dining area.
But if you step through here, you've got a very big conservatory here.
Okay, bright, nice, big space, but nice size of garden and good view over farmland again.
How are you feeling about it?
Okay, yeah. It's very modern, so we'd need to look at, again, how we'd tweak it to make it country feel.
As I said outside, it's not the sort of thing that we would ordinarily think of looking at, but I can see why you guys think it's of interest.
Behind the conservatory, a later addition, and just 10 years old, is a large sitting room with French windows to the garden.
Well, that was the dining room. Actually, they knocked through and made it one L-shaped living space.
Okay,
With the log burner.
right.
And again, that double aspect.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting so many oohs and ahs.
No, I guess it's partly because we've moved to the country, you want some country characteristics. Yes, it's got a nice wood and a hearth sort of over the fireplace, but it looks a modern piece of wood.
The house may not have historic features, but the ground floor does have a study, and upstairs there are 4 bedrooms. At the top of the stairs there are 2 sunny doubles and a bright single, which all make use of the family bathroom. And on the other side of the house, there's the master.
Nice size.
Oh yes,
Lots
decent
of
size room.
storage. Shower room. Nice, quite spacious.
Yeah, decent sized master bedroom.
And upstairs, do you get a vibe from this space?
I can see it's practical, but it just doesn't give me that sort of, oh,
Warm, use me's type of feeling.
yeah.
Maybe it'd be interesting to go out and look at the land and the garage and think about
Most certainly, most certainly. After you?
The garden's the star here, with a paved terrace overlooking a large paddock.
Chickens, they are sort of betraying the fact that actually this all belongs to this.
Wow.
Goodness me. Gracious.
1.5 acres of land.
A lovely tree at the end.
Yes, that's a 500-year-old oak.
Beautiful.
And then looking back, you've got the kind of double garage with your own access on the garden. So I'm getting the vibe that you're not that keen on the house, but out of interest, how much do you think it's on the market for?
I'm going to go with where we were the last time at number 1, 470,000.
450.
450. Interesting. So this is actually £50 short of your top budget. It's on at 499,950.
Okay. Bit more than I would have thought. But I guess that's with the value of the land.
Why don't you have a look inside the double garage, just for interest's sake, and mooch around inside, and I'll see you at the front.
Okay, thank you.
This generous property comes in under their budget, and although it's more modern than they had hoped for, they could add that internal character. They want a large kitchen diner, and they get it here, plus there's a study and 4 bedrooms. The double garage, often absent in period properties, gives Gary not only housing for his bikes, but also plenty of room to tinker around in.
Big garage.
It is a big
Lots
garage.
of space.
But it's got all of the facilities that we would want.
Having somewhere for Gary's motorbikes is very important, but actually how we live in a house and how we feel in a house. This is a family home. There are only the 2 of us most of the time. We'll have family coming to visit, but the majority of the time it will just only be him and I.
The land came as a bit of a surprise, and in some respects that's a bonus. In other respects it isn't to me. I don't really want to have that responsibility and maintenance, particularly with this style of house. Unfortunately for me, the property is not the style of property that I really appreciate, and I think you have to feel for a house to want it.
Okie dokie, that's all our houses for today. So a sort of mixed bag, but we've got the mystery house tomorrow.
OK, look forward to that.
It's day 2 of our house hunt in Suffolk, and with a healthy budget of £500,000 in their pockets, we're hoping to find Sheila and Gary a country home that wins their hearts. Coming up, there's our mystery house to unwrap.
I say, no, that is a surprise.
Wasn't expecting this, no.
And I'll be trusted at the helm of a 130-year-old vessel.
So let me remember, so you steer this way, it goes that way?
No, it's not a tiller, it's a wheel, the same as a car.
Reading between the lines, I get the feeling that Gary and Sheila are using our show as a sort of fact-finding mission about property here in Suffolk, which is fine, although they do have their house in London pretty much sold, so the pressure's on for them to find somewhere to live. What is clear is that they don't really like modern property, and they do have a penchant for the older. So we are going to take them today to the quintessence of period English housing, which is just over there.
For our mystery property, we're travelling around 25 miles south to the other side of Bury St Edmunds and the village of Lavenham. It's one of the most beautiful and best preserved medieval villages in England, with many of the timbered facades harking back to a time when this was a centre for silk weaving. Nowadays, its streets are home to an array of thriving local businesses. I've brought Sheila and Gary to the heart of the village.
One of the things we picked up emphatically yesterday was that you weren't so keen on the modern property.
No.
So we have brought you to the epicentre of ancient, beautiful period properties in Suffolk, which is Lavenham. It's great. I mean, some of these properties, the Guildhall over there, I mean, they're really iconic. But also, it is a great community.
Right.
So you've got the church, very famous church, lots of things that go around there, great village hall, film club. Got a butcher's, a baker's, probably a candlestick maker as well. There are 2 Pilates teachers in the area.
Bit of competition.
We had a look for the motorcycle, couldn't quite find
Not
a
one of
motorcycle
those.
club, but I'm sure that you could set one up.
Could do.
What would you feel about living here?
It's only a very nice town, and as you say, it's got everything there. There's a number of pubs, number of restaurants.
A lot of history, and it's true Suffolk.
Well, we're actually going towards the edge of the village, so
Right.
come with me.
OK.
Our mystery house is tucked away in a quiet location just a short stroll from the centre. Along with plenty of original features, it also had a new extension added to the back 3 years ago.
You remember the concept of the mystery house?
We do.
It's slightly sort of challenging, putting a spanner in the works.
Right.
I'm going to flag up all the kind of the red spots about this property first. Firstly, it's semi-detached.
Right.
Secondly, at the moment, there's no garage.
Right.
OK.
But there are plans for a quite ingenious garage, which we can look at inside. But those are the 2 bad points up front.
OK, that's good to know.
Now I've got that out of the way. Well, what do you think about the location? Obviously, it's a sort of grisly day, but
Yeah.
the location.
Lovely location. It's peaceful.
Yeah.
There's no road noise.
In terms of the period,
It's got some of those sort of Suffolk designs, isn't it, where there's sort of marks on the wall, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. No, it's a lovely looking building, without doubt.
let's look inside.
Our Grade 2 listed mystery offering is to the right of the front door, with the neighbour's house to the left. Through a small hallway lies a striking sitting room, with a handsome inglenook fireplace as a focal point.
Here you can see why this property is a listed, because these beams are extremely old. And this would have been the original footprint of the entire cottage.
And no low head height issues.
No.
Very good.
Yeah, unusual in these properties. Although actually a lot of the Lavenham properties were quite grand because it was a very wealthy place.
That's a nice sized room.
But interestingly, the owner, considering it's a Grade 2 listed house, managed to get planning to almost double the footprint out into the garden. So it's a much more spacious property than it would have been historically.
Well, we look forward to seeing this.
Yes.
You won't have to look forward very long. It's through here.
After you.
So this is
Another
the
sitting room.
second sitting room, but it all leads into this, which I think is a really nice addition.
I say. No, that is a surprise.
Wasn't expecting this, no.
Very contemporary. Fabulous.
Great French doors out into the garden. This room that we came through is also part of the extension. This is technically the third bedroom.
Right.
Actually, it would be a great place for Pilates.
Could be, yes.
Could be a little studio.
Yes, a studio.
It's a good size.
It is, yes.
Off the kitchen, there's a utility room and a shower room. Heading upstairs, there's a master bedroom with an ensuite. Next to the family bathroom is a fantastically quirky double bedroom.
I mean, they actually use the other one, which has an ensuite, as their master, but I think this is probably a slightly more charming room.
With the chimney breast.
It's a good-sized room.
2 windows.
We've seen everything inside. Let's go outside and think about that all-important garage.
The building Gary can't wait to see hasn't actually been built yet.
We're walking around the back of the garden here,
Okay.
and essentially what the builder, or the owner, who's also a builder, has done some very clever planning. I mean, you've seen how cleverly he's used the space inside. So essentially, because we've got this big drop here, he's got these plans to put in. Well, at the moment, he's got plans for a sort of 1.5 garage here. So it would go up against that wall and be effectively an underground garage. You know, you're thinking, gosh, in historic Lavenham, whether that's likely. But actually, the parish council are quite keen to get cars off the road.
Right.
And if you look, there's not really anything here that's of historic importance.
No.
So these plans have not been approved, I need to tell you that.
It looks promising on paper, but Gary needs to do the sums. We'll step into the garden and take stock from this side.
This would be the roof of your garage,
Yes.
Okay.
and underneath this bit of grass in the corner here.
With the steps coming up.
The steps coming up here, and then this would all be your garden. So it's not a huge garden, but sounds like you don't want a huge garden.
Not really. No.
Big enough space to have a couple of areas to sit at.
So how much do you think it costs? That's the crucial element.
For 80.
That's interesting. I'm going to stick with where I was yesterday because I want to ring fence 30,000, roughly, to do the garage work. So I'm going to stick at my 470.
Tried and tested. Well, in this instance, both of you are a bit pessimistic because actually this is on the market for 450.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that is a surprise.
Quite interesting. Different than I thought.
450?
For being so close to the centre of the village.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think this is a really interesting property for you guys. Not what you were looking for, but nonetheless thought-provoking.
Yes.
So go inside and be provoked.
Okay.
We'll do that.
And shelter out of the rain.
Thank you.
Yes! That is the response I wanted. It's a bit of a risk because obviously no garage, only 2 bedrooms, but I think it's an exceptional property, and I think it's going to shake up what they're looking for, which is exactly what the Mystery House should do.
Our Grade 2 listed mystery property is a gratifying £50,000 under Sheila and Gary's top budget. It may be semi-detached, but its mix of historic bones and a modern airy kitchen exceeded their expectations. There are only 2 bedrooms, but there's a perfect space downstairs, which could double up as a spare room for guests and a Pilates studio for Sheila. The size of the garden wasn't a deal-breaker, but the garage was, so luckily plans have been drawn up that would make it just the trick for Gary.
Quite a surprise. A house we wouldn't normally have chosen to go to, a listed property, and from outside it being semi-detached, very narrow. But then when you come inside, it just keeps going. There's room after room, and the kitchen, dining, it is a fascinating room.
The great surprise was coming through into the new extension area and walking into the kitchen, and it's been very nicely done. It's very contemporary, and because Sheila and I spend, like most modern families, most of our time in a kitchen diner, this definitely ticks that box.
The plot and the location in the village is ideal. To be right in the centre of the village is actually something we hadn't considered. We haven't looked at any properties in the village before.
I'd say the Mystery House is more of a surprise house, really. It's certainly something for us to consider very, very seriously.
That was your Mystery House in Lavenham.
That was very nice. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of smiles.
Good fun.
Good fun.
Good fun indeed.
Let's find someone to have a cup of tea in this lovely village.
Okay.
Suffolk's River Orwell, so loved by the author George Orwell, runs from Ipswich to Harwich Harbour. And in the first half of the 1900s, it was a hive of commercial activity, with cargo being carried by Thames barges, vessels around 80 foot long, designed to carry a 200-ton load. One of the few barges to survive is the Victor, built in 1895, near the wet docks here in Ipswich. I'm meeting her skipper, David Wes Westwood, to find out more about these iconic vessels.
Hey, Wes.
Hello there.
Nice to see you. What a beautiful barge.
Nice to see you.
Isn't she great?
Yep. Built here in Ipswich in 1895.
Oh, so she's like 120 years old.
120 years this year, yeah.
And how much of it is original?
The name. There is some original woodwork in there, but 120-year-old lump of wood in the water's not got a lot of life left in it.
Well, the Victor certainly looks very comfortable docked here at the waterfront, but in her day she definitely earned her keep.
If you look at a barge, it was like a white van of its day. These zoomed in and out the ports, took cargo to them, brought cargo back. This one was collecting flax from around the farms and then up to London docks for export.
So how long did it take a barge to get from Colchester up to the Pool of London?
Anything from about 15 hours to about 6 weeks, depending on the weather.
15 hours to 6 weeks?
Well, if there weren't no wind, you know, fog bound or something, then you won't go nowhere.
When was the sort of end of it? Because presumably that it wasn't trains, because trains were already around turn of the century.
Trains were already around, yeah. I guess the lorry's what really probably killed them.
Over a 300-year period, around 2,500 barges like this were built. The water here is now mainly used for leisure. The Victor was restored in 2005, and her cargo is now people. She's a pleasure boat, taking around 4,500 tourists up and down the river each year. She usually sports a grand red sail, but she's in the middle of her annual overhaul, so today she's running on a motor. And Wes is taking me out for a trip on the water.
So have you been your whole life on the boats?
All my working life, I've worked afloat on one thing or another, whether it be dredges, marinas, on the ports equipment here.
But you're an Ipswich man.
I'm an Ipswich through and through, yeah.
So you must have seen this change a lot.
Very much so, yeah.
Wes may have spent his life on the water, but I haven't. And as we pass through the lock gate, which takes us from the wet dock into the open river, he's putting me in charge.
Right, if you want to take the wheel now for a minute.
All right.
See the big blue crane?
Yep.
Don't hit it.
So shall I come this side?
Stand whatever side you feel comfortable with.
So let me remember, so you steer this way, it goes that way?
No,
no.
It's not a tiller, it's a wheel, the same as a car. That's it.
So you want to go back again?
A little bit more, stop a turning. That's it.
So back in the day, when it was under sail, obviously a bit more tricky with the sails.
Yep.
So how big was the crew?
Two.
Two?
Two. Man and a boy.
Wow.
Or man, a boy and a dog, actually. The man told the boy what to do and the dog bit him if he didn't do it.
And you've been on her for?
10 years I've been skipping this one, yeah.
So what's the magic of Victor? What's the magic of being on this one?
That's a hard question. They're all magical. They've all got something to them, but just I've put a lot of time and effort into this one, so it really is sort of hard to let it go.
So I'm just trying to imagine what life on the barges would have been like.
Well, if you want to go and talk to Merv has actually lived the life. He was mate on barges in the 40s and 50s. So if you want to go and talk to him, he's the best bloke to talk to.
I'll surrender the wheel.
Thank you.
Merv, hello.
Pleased to meet you, sir.
Wes says that you were a proper bargeman.
Oh, yes. I've done all the thing from cook right up to mate.
So what sort of period of time are we talking? When was the tail end of that barge life?
About 1960, 61.
As the mate, what were you responsible for?
Virtually everything. Looked after the barge, trimmed all the lights because they were all paraffin lights, wash it down when you've discharged, help cover up, put the ropes all back.
So what is the attraction? What's the charm of... Because, you know, you're still on a barge now.
Well, it's just the fact that's in me. From 6 years old being aboard a barge, you never lose it. I thoroughly enjoy it.
I can see, yeah.
A life on waterways is clearly in Wes and Merv's blood, and in this beautiful Suffolk setting, I can see why.
Lavenham's magnificent wool church might be the magnet to pull Sheila and Gary into the village, because they really did like the Mystery House, but did they like it enough? Let's find out. This has been a very interesting week in Suffolk.
It has.
Certainly.
It's been quite an education and opening us up to things that we wouldn't have looked at before, and helped us prioritise.
Now, I got the impression that the Lavenham property, the Mystery House, was your favourite. Is that correct?
When we turned up, you know, initially it didn't entirely fit the brief. As you pointed out, it is semi-detached. But it was great fun, and the journey through the house was a complete surprise. And the modern extension that's been put on there, contemporary, suits the way we live quite well. The issue, of course, is this business that there isn't a garage, and I must have one, but there is this potential, as you pointed out, to construct one.
It's interesting because in many ways it didn't give you any of the things you after.
No,
strangely.
yes.
But it was the one that you kind of liked. And what might happen next? Would you put an offer in if there was planning?
I think it's something we need to consider and mull over, but mull over very, very quickly, but it's certainly not ruled out.
Your search criteria, in a way, have limited you quite a lot, but particularly around listing, because everywhere you go in Suffolk, they mostly look like this, and they are listed.
No, I think that's less of an issue than it was, and I think we have to be realistic.
Well, I hope it's been more than just educational, but all the best. I hope it goes well, because the clock is ticking.
It is,
Alistair.
yes. Bit of a worry.
Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's been great being here in Suffolk during the spring. It does seem like the market is picking up, and I do hope by the time the season turns and these little chaps have turned into teenagers, Gary and Sheila will have found a place to live in this lovely county. And I hope that you join us next time for more Escape to the Country.
Sheila and Gary decided not to revisit our mystery house and have since expanded their search and had an offer accepted on a converted cider barn in Norfolk. If you would like to escape to the country in Scotland, Wales, England or Northern Ireland and would like our help, please apply online at bbc.co.uk/be on a show.
The water behind me inspired one of England's greatest 20th century authors to change his name. Find out who he was and where I am in just a moment.
Today's property shopping pair has decided to swap the big smoke for pastures new.
I think it's very quaint. It's proper sort of Suffolk-looking building.
And they're hoping the right property will provoke some heartfelt reactions.
It just doesn't give me that sort of, oh...
Warm, use me's type of feeling.
Yeah.
Today I'm in Suffolk, and this is the River Orwell, which gave the young writer Eric Blair the idea for his pen name, under which he became a much more famous George. Of course, it was Orwell's book 1984, published after the Second World War, that gave us the ideas of doublespeak, Big Brother and Room 101. And it's hard to connect those dystopian concepts with this very bucolic and pastoral bit of England. But the young writer Orwell did live here when he was staying with his parents down the road in Southwold, and he would come on walks along the riverside to get inspiration from the brooding skies and solitude of this bit of Suffolk. Suffolk has strong and distinctive countryside, and at the last count, 12,500 historic listed buildings. So you'd be surprised to know that it's still quite reasonable to buy property here. The average cost of a detached house in the county is £270,000, which is £13,000 less than the national figure. So not massively cheaper, but still not too expensive. That is, unless you go across to the coast, where in places like Aldborough or Southwold, houses can cost double the national figure. So what is it that's exciting our buyers today about moving to this lovely county? Let's meet them and find out.
HR Director Sheila and husband Gary, who owns his own design construction business, met over 2 decades ago.
We've just recently had our 20th wedding anniversary. We were both working at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, working on their new redevelopment project. And I was employed by the hospital and he was on the building site.
The contractor said to me, we have one of the hospital managers who's not particularly easy to get on with, Gary. We might need you to meet her to try and smooth her over a bit. And I did, and thus we're here.
Sheila and Gary live in Wandsworth, southwest London, and after a lifetime of work, they've decided they want to slow things down.
Maybe it's time to use the, if you like, the autumn of our lives while we've still got good health and have a change.
It's the right time. I don't want to wait until I'm 65 and then be too old to do the exploring.
Although they've loved city life, it's no longer the place they want to call home.
We want to be a little bit more isolated, a little bit more rural, and enjoy that outside life rather than the cosmopolitan life in London. We would like to own a dog as well. Those people who own dogs tend to statistically live longer, and I'm up for that.
The two of them are free to make their rural move, as Gary's daughter is now grown up. And Suffolk has many selling points that appeal to them.
It's got a mix of the things that we like. We like being near or easy access to the sea, but also easy access to lots of countryside and areas to walk.
Since giving up work, they're already investing quality time in doing the things they love.
We've enjoyed the sort of retirement for the last 2 or 3 months, and it's spending time together and getting our routine out of a routine. I do quite a bit of reading. Cooking we do quite a lot of. Gary's taking that up. We do that together.
And I find it quite relaxing, to be honest. I'm looking forward to the better weather coming so I can get out on the roads on my motorbikes. I'm very interested in those.
Sheila's also working on a new venture for when they move.
I'm using the opportunity to do some retraining, so I've chosen to do more Pilates. To me, it's totally different to anything I've ever done before.